Kia ora, everyone, and welcome to today's event. My name is Sam, and I am from Prospel. For those of you who don't know Prospel or weren't watching that video just then, we are a company that runs jobs boards for university students, as well as students from polytechnics and students across the country. Our most notable one is Grad New Zealand. We also partner with a whole bunch of other groups as well. And again, hello and welcome to today's construction and property services stream. We'll start off with a panel today, this morning, and joining me on the panel to begin today's event, we've got, add everyone in now, Jess from the property group. Kia ora, Jess.
Hello.
And we've got Donovan from Fulton Hogan. Hello, Donovan. How are we doing?
G'day, Sam. How are you?
Good. Both going well this morning? Well, this afternoon now, I guess. It's 2 o'clock. What time is it? Yeah, going well?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks.
Fantastic.
Hi, Donovan.
Hey, g'day, Jess. How are you?
And for everyone, for the students, unfortunately, Downer Group has to send their apologies for today. Unfortunately, COVID has gone through the team, so it'll just be the three of us today, which will, I think, be pretty exciting, to be honest. We've got some great questions for you both to kick off today's event. But in fact, I might start with Jess. If you could just introduce yourself and the property group.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jess. I work at the property group. I'm the people and culture advisor. So I look after our graduate program here at the property group. We're a specialist property consultancy. So our business service lines range from property planning, GIS, urban regeneration, and we also have an in-house legal team. And we've got 13 offices across the country, and I'm based in our head office in Wellington. Right, that's probably it for me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Jess. Donovan, same question. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about
g'day.
Fulton Hogan.
G'day, team. I'm Donovan Wallace. I'm our National Operations Manager for Fulton Hogan. So I look after all of our civil builds across the country. If you don't know what Fulton Hogan does, is we sort of cover all of the horizontal infrastructure in New Zealand, in terms of road building and water infrastructure and things like that, which I think we'll touch on a bit later, Sam? We've got about 7,500 employees, and we've got offices in almost every single region in New Zealand. So,
fantastic. Thanks for the introduction, Jess and Donovan. And now for all our students in the audience today, we're going to jump into a bit of a panel now. I'm going to ask a couple of different questions to both Jess and Donovan. But if you've got any specific questions yourself, make sure to get it into the Q&A function, which you also hopefully have access to down the bottom of the application. You can also interact in the chat as well. Maybe it might be a great icebreaker to let us know who you are, where you're joining from, maybe what institute you come from, whether it's uni, a technical institute, polytechnic. Let us know in the chat as well. But first question off the bat, and I'll go back to you, Donovan. What's the most important piece of advice you'd give to students aspiring to work both within Fulton Hogan and just in the sector more broadly?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it depends on what line you want to take, Sam, but I think the most important thing that's helped me in my career is keeping my mind open to new opportunities, and set your overall goal somewhere in your career, but just keep your mind open on which way that might take, because opportunities open up all the time, and don't get too sort of disgruntled if the opportunity is not right in front of you, and especially in the construction sector in New Zealand. It is very, very volatile at the moment, which is a great place to be. And opportunities that you never thought would come your way will open up.
Fantastic. Jess, same question. Most important piece of advice?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a really good piece of advice. The one that I give to graduates thinking about working for us, or anybody really, is to research the company and to understand what they do. I mean, Fulton Hogan's quite a well-known business. We're less well-known. We're quite a medium-sized business, so we often find that people don't know what we do, or they get confused about what we do. So we really encourage people to, jump on our website and figure out whether this is the best place for you and really understand what you will be doing here. But in saying that, keeping a really, like Donovan said, keeping an open mind is also important, because we find people come in one area and then they actually find they enjoy working in another area of the business, and they end up moving in quite a different direction. So
Fantastic. I've got a couple of great questions already coming in from the Q&A component too, and I might jump to Patricia's. She had a couple of questions actually. I think it's probably a good one to start off with, which is there's a few here, and we'll go through them one by one. Do either of you have internships that you recruit for? Would you recommend them? Also, do you have a set grad program as well? Would it be? I might look up, maybe start the internship question first, and then also finally, where can we find information to apply and key dates? Jess, do you want to kick us off?
Yep, sure. Yeah, we do have a graduate development program. So if you want to find out information about that, you tune in at 3 o'clock when we'll be talking about it, all about our grad program. So we have a 2-year grad program, and we currently have 13 grads on that. As I said, we're about 180 people, so it's not a huge grad program. All the information about that is on our website, on how to apply, what areas of the business we take graduates in. And we do take interns as well. Our internship program's not as formalized at the moment. We tend to we figure out where and when our grads are going to, what areas of business they're going to go to, and then we take on interns. The interns tend to be internships tend to be a little bit more informal, so they usually come about by people, just really proactive students contacting us, and if we've got an opportunity, then we go from there. So
fantastic. So yes to both. Sure, which is great. Donovan, same question. Do you? Same questions. Do you have an internship program?
We're very similar to the property group. We've got a graduation or a grad program. Our grad program, there's probably a few of them. Again, sort of caters to a difference of scenarios. But in most regions, we're running grad programs, so that gives people the ability to also work away from home or work close to home for the first few years of their career. The other thing is that we run a few almost subsidiary grad programs where we have a rotation scheme with our client and a consultancy, so you get a bit of a flavour around doing a bit of construction, go work for the client like Waka Kotahi or NZTA or one of the Auckland Transport or a council, Dunedin Council, for example, but also get the consultancy side of things. So you go into the likes of Oricon or WSP or GHD, and you can actually do a bit of design work. And at the end of that rotation scheme, you can then have a good flavour of what you actually enjoy more of, and then perhaps go and work permanently for one of those companies. So there's quite a few different. We also run a cadetship, so which is a little bit different to the internship, but it's probably more in terms of building a career in the trades.
Fantastic. Couple of questions here in regards to eligibility. Now, do you only take students from universities, or would you consider students with a diploma and maybe coming from a polytech, like a unitech or something like that? Jess, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can. We do target students from polytech or unitech as well. Generally, it's degree level, but we're not really we don't kind of, it's not that we won't look at people. I mean, we'll look at all applicants if they can demonstrate some kind of interest in the property industry or in consultancy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Donovan?
if you're not sure, I think,
sorry.
yeah, put your hat in the ring.
No
Yeah.
harm, right? Yeah, Jess, like just put your name forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're sort of again. There's no eligibility in terms of grades or having a master's or a diploma, for example. We take all engineering students on face value, and it's a interview process, and our main character we look for is good people to work with. You know, the skills we can teach. I think behaviours and culture is something that we look at more intently. The only sort of prerequisites is probably more in terms of our scholarships. Those are the sort of qualification where it really matters what grade you're getting.
Yeah.
That's probably a good segue into the application process, actually, more broadly. We mentioned, quality of fit's pretty big key component there, Donovan. But is there anything else that Fulton Hogan looks for in an application? Is there anything in particular students on the call should try to demonstrate to be able to progress to through each round?
Yeah, I think when you apply for one of these and you get to the interview stage, you want to demonstrate who you are as best you can. And if that's about talking about stories that you can share around doing some work experience or how you've handled a situation, those are the sort of things that we want to talk to you about. Also, a little bit of aspiration is always good, going, well, I can see myself leading some people, for example, or I really like, and what you like and dislike. I really like getting into numbers and or I actually like being on sites more. That's what's, so it's about getting to know you as quick as we can. We only got that hour or 2 hours of an interview. We want to know who you are so that we can make a decision based on that.
Fantastic. Same question, Jess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think a really good point to make is that we know that graduates, we're not expecting them to come with, years of experience. You probably won't have any experience. So we tend to look at the person and, if they're well-rounded. So things like any part-time work experience that you've had through university is really useful. Any volunteering or sport or travel is the other one that I always find is really useful when we're looking at our grads. The other tip I would give our grads is who are looking to apply is just read the news. It's really research, read the news, know what's going on, because a lot of the time our the clients or the projects that we're working on, there are things that people know about, and the news will be the same for Fulton Hogan, I would imagine, as well. So just knowing what's going on is really valuable, I think. And so we've changed our interview process a little bit last year. So we don't just now we used to just do, like, say, an hour interview. We've changed, and it's kind of half a day, I suppose, now. So the reason we did that is that we find that students get really nervous in those 1 hour interviews, and often we don't really get to see the person. So now we get them to come in, they have a shorter interview, they do a written exercise, and then they do like a case study with the other students who are applying. So it sounds quite scary, but it's designed to make people more relaxed, and they do relax a little bit more over the day, and then you get to see the person, like Donovan said. So yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, you gave a little clarity there on your application process, just the property group. Donovan, do you have any insight you can give to the team on the Fulton Hogan application process at all? It's quite similar.
I think it is quite similar, and I think Marie and Brigida will be covering it in their presentations at 3 o'clock. So stay tuned to have a look at the application process. Is what I can say.
Fantastic. So for students who land a job with you, is there any particular advice you would give them to help them survive and thrive in their first year? So they've got their first job, they started with you a couple of weeks in. What should they be doing? Jess, do you want to go first?
Survive. It's an interesting one. I would say that the biggest piece of advice we give our grads is just to ask questions. If you're not sure, ask questions. There's a lot of support for our grads and people there to help you. So don't sit back if you're not sure. Just be curious, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Donovan, same question.
Yeah, that's great advice, Jess, is ask questions. My advice would be make friends. You're starting a career in an industry it seems massive when you first start, but actually it's very, very small, and you can make some really, really good friends that last pretty much your whole career. Mm-hmm. And you got to understand that a lot of people are going for the same stuff that you are doing. During our grad program, we do get the grads together in the country, and so they do get to do some networking. Mm-hmm. But probably the most important advice I can give you is just have some fun. I enjoy the job. Don't get too stressed about it. There's a lot more time in your career you can be stressed about this sort of stuff. It's when you first get into it, have some fun.
Got a question from Annie in the Q&A, and it asks, are mature age students welcome, particularly those with plenty of experience in potentially other industries? Donovan?
Yeah, absolutely. We can learn a lot from other industries, and we seldom get people from other industries applying on this one. So we definitely welcome that, Sam.
Jess, same question.
Yeah, absolutely. We would welcome mature students, and there's definitely no age limit on it. So yeah, anybody as interested is eligible to apply.
Fantastic. It's a question here from Julie in regards to throughout the application process. Do you do research on candidates, particularly if it gets really up to that offer stage? I think probably the concern is maybe for students, maybe their Facebook, their personal Instagram, and all that sort of stuff. Is there anything that is a bit of a red flag that they should be aware of, that maybe should tidy up their social media?
That's a good question. We would, if they provide their LinkedIn profile, we would have a look on their LinkedIn profile, but that's about it. We definitely don't go trawling through Facebook or Instagram. Yeah.
Donovan, same question.
Yeah, I think we're about the same. We do some reference checks in terms of given references, and with anyone starting a career at Fulton Hogan, they do go for police clearance. That's not unique just to students.
Yeah, we do that as well. Yeah.
Hopefully that alleviates some concerns there for Julie.
You don't need to delete your Facebook pictures, Julie.
Yeah.
Joy was it? Sorry that asked.
No,
yeah.
don't go to my Facebook.
Yeah. I guess follow-up question to that, if we're checking LinkedIn's, which is obviously a fantastic tool, is there anything that you look out for on LinkedIn? Is there anything they should particularly include on their profile? Jess?
Not particularly. I find that students aren't particularly active on LinkedIn, to be honest, because they haven't, a lot of the time they haven't, this is their first job. So the things that we would look for is maybe companies that they're following, or groups that they're interested in that show their interest in the industry, or if they're following the property group, for example.
quick tip for everyone. Follow the companies you're applying for.
That just shows the maturity around doing the research for who you want to work for. Making sure your values align to the company, and you can get all that with following them on LinkedIn, because you get to see real people's stories. So if you relate to those, then perhaps that shows a level of maturity. So good call, Jess.
Yeah, and also if you're following particular groups or industries, that picks up on that point I made earlier about just researching and reading the news and understanding what's happening in that industry. It's a really good way to then start making those connections as well that Donovan mentioned earlier.
Fantastic. Um, do both of you still, from your grads and interns, require them to submit a resume as part of the application process? Yep, nods. So I guess the follow-up question, like a bit of a trick question, but the follow-up question is, why is a resume important? Who wants to?
Yeah, I'll go first. I
Phil?
think in terms of resume, it gives us a quick snippet to start looking at what you've done up to now to sort of shape your thought pattern into the career you want to follow. It doesn't have to cover exactly work experience, but put some stuff in there around some of the decisions you've made. So for us, it's really good to see, like when we look at resumes, some of the things that open up discussions is, well, why did you leave this company or join that company, or why did you leave this paper out and pursue this type of university paper, you know, and that gives us just a few more prods around who you are. It's definitely a good idea to have a resume.
Yeah, I agree with that. We also ask for students to submit a cover letter, which is probably, I think, usually more insightful than the resume, because it gives us a sense of whether they've researched the company that they're applying for. You can tell really easily when someone's done a copy and a paste in a cover letter. So I would suggest putting some time into a cover letter if you're applying for a job. And it also gives us a good idea of quality, attention to detail, which we look for throughout our interview process.
Are there any particular do's and don'ts that you can really flag for when you're reading the cover letter?
No grammatical errors, no spelling mistakes. Yeah, they're pretty quick wins.
Addressing it to the wrong company as well, I'm sure.
Addressing it to the wrong company. Yeah, I've had that happen. Yeah.
Does Fulton Hogan look for cover letters as well, Donovan?
We don't specifically put it as a prerequisite, but you can tell if someone's written a really good cover letter, how professional they are, and I think it's really important. Yeah.
Back to the resume as well. I just want to really drill down on this, because for some students, it might be the first time they're actually creating their professional resume. So, is there anything you really look out for in a resume, and is there a particular length that they should be sticking to? Any red flags around that?
You go first, Janice, if you want. Or...
I mean, I would say a couple of pages max, 3 pages. I mean, you're graduate, so you're not going to have a whole lot of work experience, but yeah, I would say a couple of pages max. Remembering that often for grad programs or grad roles, we get a lot of CVs, so we're not going to spend an hour looking through each one. That's just the reality of it. So your education, your qualification, any work experience, like hobbies, interests, that kind of thing, are pretty standard to include on it.
Yeah, I would agree with Jess. I wouldn't have a resume more than a page if you're only starting your career. You know, so. I
guess it also shows how succinct you can be, right?
Yeah.
How good you are at summarizing. That's great.
Yeah. And often the universities, if you're at a university, they usually offer resume services where someone will help you. So it's a good idea to get someone to have a look at it as well if it's your first time doing it.
Yeah, and if you can get some character references in there, that's outside your family and friends. And I remember when I first started, it was really hard to find a reference that's not family friends. You know, and so I think if you can have a university lecturer or someone like that can give a reference on your behalf, that'll work as well.
Is there anything you don't want to see in a resume? Obviously, having it too long is one big thing, and you mentioned a couple of things that are really key to include. But is there anything you look at when you see a resume, you're like, oh, why is that there? Tough one, maybe.
Yeah, I think it is a tough one. It's hard to put your finger on it. I think keeping it short and simple and to the point. Don't labor any of the points that you want to make. Make them short and sweet and punchy. if you waffle on too long with one point, then you're trying to fill the space, and it comes across that way. So,
Jess,
Yeah.
same.
I mean, nothing springs to mind, but yeah, just the length, I think, is probably the main thing.
Yeah, I guess similar to the resume as well, spelling errors, all that
Yeah,
sort of
it's
stuff
the
as well.
quality. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a question from Amanda asking about whether or not you take on diplomas of architectural technology students, but maybe I'll sort of expand the question. I get you to sort of clarify, is there any particular disciplines that you're very much looking for? I think, Donovan, I heard you say engineering is obviously the key focus, but anything more than engineering at Fulton Hogan? And then I'll throw to Jess for the property group.
You go first, Donovan.
Okay. Yeah. Look, we've got a vast range of different roles and careers in Fulton Hogan. Sort of from accountants to designers to design groups, mechanical and electrical engineers, civil engineers, structural engineers. I think, again, if you don't throw your ring inside the hat, you won't know. Definitely consider all applicants, and what we try and do is shape a career around a person. So we won't try and box you into one specific role if you've got skills for 4 of them, for example. So without saying exactly architectural student, but it's pretty open there.
Jess, same question. What sort of?
Yes, we do have some eligibility criteria. So we've got, and I'll talk about this in our presentation at 3, but we've got 2 streams, I suppose. One of our first stream is property and GIS, and the disciplines that we look for are property, obviously, but we also take business degree, business, commerce, or law, and then for the GIS part of it, that's usually they tend to come from science with some GIS papers. And then we've got a planning and urban regeneration stream. So that's a bit more specific. Planning, obviously, architecture, urban design, urban planning are the main ones in there.
Fantastic. I think there's another question about rotations as well, but I assume that's probably going to be covered in both presentations, like the sort of work. So I might leave that for, don't want to take too much out of those presentations that are coming up after this panel. So I might switch gears a little bit and ask a question of if you could both maybe describe a typical day in the life of a grad or an intern if you can, but if not, maybe yourselves. Donovan, do you want to kick us off? Little day in life of someone at Fulton Hogan.
It's a good question. It's probably a broad range. But if I had to pick, for example, a typical engineering student being on, or engineering grad, it probably depends on where you are and what projects we've gone on at the moment. So you can see in my background there, that's a wastewater treatment plant we're building in Tauranga at the moment. So we've got a couple of grads on that, working out how to put up precast panels and pour concrete and structural steel, and so you're learning the whole time from other engineers and project managers that's done it for a while. You could get a rotation from there into a bitumen plant, for example, and learn how to the chemistry behind making bitumen and putting it on the road, or I'm looking at our Fulton Hogan precast yard here. You could be going in there if the interest lies on how to do precast concrete, reinforced concrete, and so pretty much on a day you're learning how to be an engineer and learning from people that've been doing it for a while.
Fantastic. Jess, same question. Typical day in the life of a young grad.
Sure. Well, because I work in the people and culture team, I don't know the ins and outs of the technical side, but I can give it a go. So it does depend, like Donovan said, a lot on the type of work that we have and the type of clients that you're working with. But that's, I think, a good point to make, is that when you're working in a consultancy environment, you don't just get to work for the property group, for example. You actually get to work for all of these different types of businesses and clients. So our grads could be working with a range of different clients. Wakatahi is a big client of ours, New Zealand Transport Agency. Quite a lot of central government clients, local authorities, and then private clients as well. So I think I know our grads in our Wellington office here, our consultants all have a Monday morning meeting where they assign the work for the week ahead. And probably the biggest thing is that our grads will be with a senior consultant. You don't just get thrown in at the deep end by yourself. So there'll be a lot of learning on the job, but working alongside a senior consultant. So it might be attending a client meeting, going on a site visit, writing reports or recommendations to a client. And then there's also some fun stuff as well. So a little bit of social activities our grads like to get involved in. We have sports teams, daily quiz is quite important fixture in the day. We've got Friday drinks, that kind of thing. And our grads are part of a peer network as well, which is similar to what Donovan mentioned. So they usually have learning sessions as a group across the country. So, so it could be any of those, really.
Fantastic. In terms of, you'll speak to students, I'm sure, quite often, whether as they're starting or in platforms like this. Do you find there are any big key common misconceptions about either, Fulton Hogan or property group, or just the construction industry in general that you find come up quite often? Jess, I might start with you.
Yeah, well, that goes back to the point I made at the start. We often get common misconception is that we're a real estate company, and we don't do real estate at all, or that we're property management. So we're neither of those. They're probably the two things that we don't do. So that just goes back to have a look on our website. It's a really good source of information about what we do and the types of projects that we've worked on. That all often resonates with students more than us describing our service lines. It's like, well, what have we worked on? Give an example. So there's lots of case studies on our website. Yeah, common misconception about probably consultancy is that you have to work 80 hours a week, which, I think that's maybe in the past in consulting environments that would be true, but it's definitely not true of our environment. We don't expect people to work kind of till 11 o'clock at night or anything like that. So it's quite a balanced environment now.
Fantastic. Donovan, same question. Common misconceptions about Fulton Hogan, maybe just the construction industry more broadly. Probably.
Yeah, if I had to get some misconceptions around Fulton Hogan, I think probably the most misconception is around what we do. We don't just build roads and put down asphalt, and I think that's really important to understand. In the construction industry itself, again, the common misconception is sort of a dirty contractor. It's not a professional career, but it's actually it's a really you can take yourself into a real high place and have a really professional career where you're rubbing shoulders with ministers and people inside NZTA and Wakatahi and I think you don't have to be stuck inside the actual building of construction the whole time. It's actually easier than you think, being able to move between building the job, being the client, or being the designer and being in the design group. And in fact, probably the most successful people in the construction industry have been in all three of those camps. So.
Yeah, I might add one more. Is just around is diversity. Well, I think when people think of construction and property in the past, it's probably typically been a male-dominated environment, but that's definitely changing and it's become much more professional, I think. For example, our business, I'd probably, 10 years ago it would have been more male dominated, but this year we had 8 grads start and 7 of them were female. So it's definitely becoming more gender balance in the industry, I think.
Fantastic point, Jess. That's a fantastic point.
That's great. I got a question in from Kieran. Interesting question. Just about the difference in working in New Zealand versus maybe going over the ditch to Australia. Is there anything you can, obviously, property group in Fulton Hogan operations, working in New Zealand, so maybe you could talk about what it's like to work locally versus going across the ditch. And feel free, obviously I'm an Australian, so feel free to be a bit brutal if you want. Who wants to go first? Jonathan, do you want to?
Yeah, I can go first there. I haven't worked abroad myself, but we are in Australia. In fact, we probably do the same amount of business as in New Zealand. The main difference in the construction sector there is that you are doing more contract management rather than looking after people that's actually building the job. So in Australia, there's a lot of smaller construction firms that are supplying the labour and materials and things into a project. And if you are in the bigger construction teams over there, like Leighton's or Fulton Hogan, you're actually contract managing subcontract packages. And over in New Zealand, we deliver most of our own work. And so here, you're actually talking to the people and organising the groups that's doing the work. And it's a lot more hands-on in terms of engineering.
Just anything to add to that? Any benefits of staying obviously local rather than going across the ditch?
That's a hard question. I've worked in Australia, and I'm not a Kiwi, but I've lived here for 10 years. The thing that I notice about New Zealand since I've lived here is it's quite small. So and then you've got this industry within New Zealand that's small as well. So everybody tends to know each other, so that can be positive or it can be negative. It's a good way to make connections and do a good job, so you can make a name for yourself, but likewise it can go the other way as well. So that would probably be the main point I'd make there.
You can always go to Australia after.
Yeah. Yeah.
Conscious of time, we're actually coming up to almost the end of our panel. Just a couple more minutes left, and I do have probably another one or so from mine that I want to ask you. But I do have a question here from JP asking the best time to apply for jobs at both the property group and Fulton Hogan. Jess, when's the best time to be applying for property?
Best times now. Our grad program opened on Monday for property and GIS, so that's live now for 3 weeks, and the planning and urban regeneration part of it that I mentioned, that opens in mid-May. But we've aligned our program with the university year because we tend to find that students want to apply now, but then they'll start in January. And that also means they start together as a cohort or a group of grads, which is quite nice.
Donovan, same question. I assume we're almost jumping into the presentation that's up next, but right now as well?
My answer probably contradicts our presentation, funny enough, but I would say now or as soon as you can, it doesn't matter what time of the year, just apply. We've got grads starting whenever they're ready, and we've got people that applied to be in the grad program, but they want to go on a 6-month OE, and so we accommodate that. Go and do that, and then come back and start your career. And sometimes having a bit of agility around the start date is just what people need. So
fantastic. Well, let the presentation next clarify any other dates as well they need to be aware of. I reckon final question, just for both of you as well. Just a couple of sentences, give us your quick elevator pitch. We talked a little bit about all throughout today, but why should students apply for Fulton, Hogan, Donovan.
My elevator pitch probably is the story for myself, Sam. I started at Fulton Hogan as a 19-year-old labourer. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, and Fulton Hogan pushed me into studying to be a civil engineer. And I couldn't do that because I already had a young family. And so Fulton Hogan said, well, you can study part-time and we'll supplement you through that. And I did that, and I was able to then go on a few major projects, which, you don't get often that chance to do that in New Zealand. And if you do get a chance, I recommend it to everyone. And then here I am now as a national manager looking after our civil team. And I think the diversity in Fulton Hogan and the people that you work with have got real good values. We're a family-based company, 100% family and staff owned, and probably the last real construction company in New Zealand that build the stuff that we sell.
Fantastic. Jess, same question.
That's a bit of a hard one to beat.
Elevator pitch, yeah.
Story like that. I would say it's a really great way to kickstart your career in the property industry, and I think our point of difference is we're big enough that you get a really diverse range of projects to work on, but we're still medium sized or small enough that you get to know everybody, and got a really flat structure, and yeah, it's a fun environment to be in. And the other thing is, I think getting some skills in consultancy will really set you up for a career in any other place, because they're really core skills like communication, understanding client, problem solving. So that's a really good foundation for your career, I think.
Fantastic. Well, both fantastic elevator pitches to conclude our panel today. Jess and Donovan, thank you so much for your time answering all the questions, particularly some of the tricky ones I threw in throughout the panel.